Alright guys, welcome back to another video. It has been a while since I've done a video on this channel, swim bait fishing, and it's because I've been busy doing other types of fishing, a lot of salmon, steelhead fishing this fall and winter, and we've had a ton of rain. This water is, it's poop brown. I'm throwing a Huddleston right here, and if I dip it in the water, I got about 6 to 10 inches of visibility probably, and I'm going to start off just kind of tossing it around the corner of these docks just in case. But it's been pouring down rain. The lake is it's flooded, it's really high, really dirty, so not the best conditions at all to be, creeping a swim bait around. Alright, so how I fish this bait in the cold months like this, when these fish are going to be relating to the bottom and feeding on these trout. So what I do is I throw my bait out there, and try to find some kind of hard structure, whether it be some rock. Rock is really the big thing, but at least some kind of hard bottom, even if it's harder sand or clay or something. And try to find, if it's clay, you got a straight clay bottom or something, try and find a piece of structure on it, whether it be maybe a little lay down or a little rock pile, something. You want to find something in a little deeper water, like this lake here is probably the deepest. And here it's probably about 7 to 10 feet deep, and so I'm going to find the deepest little parts of it, and I'm going to try to find some structure in there, whether it be rock or a lay down, something in there, which I found something right here. I'm going to throw this bait in there, let it sink, hit the bottom, all the way down, hit the bottom, and then when it hits the bottom, I kind of just let it sit. I kind of, reel up to it just in case I do get a bite while it's sitting there. I can feel it, but I kind of just will let it dead stick there for a little bit. Just because a fish could have been laying there and watched that bait come down and then boom, hit the bottom, and it's just sitting there. And a fish, the slower you go, the more time it's going to give the fish to come over to your bait. And in this muddy water, it's going to be hard for the fish to find it and see it. But the more you let it sit there in this cold water, it gives a better chance for those fish to slowly kind of work their way to the bait. And this dirtier water, I'm going to kind of have to run into the fish, but but I want to give myself the best chance I can, so I'm going to go as slow as I can and give the fish as much time as possible to come over and eat the bait. So that's why you work these baits so slow. It looks like just a trout that they dump in thousands of stalker trout, and it looks like a trout that just got wounded. When they dumped it in, it didn't make it, it got wounded, or it's sick or something. Maybe there's a ton of birds out here that eat these little trout eating birds, I call them. I didn't actually think they'd eat a full trout till I was out here one day throwing a swim bait, and I saw one come up with a trout hanging out of its mouth. I don't know if you can see them out there, a ton of them out there, so there's probably a school of trout. I'm just imitating a dying trout, basically, a trout that's down there that got wounded and just kind of bumping along in the bass's territory. And you basically just want to bump it right along in front of and land, basically get it right in front of a big fish's face. Alright guys, so I hope you somewhat enjoyed that video. It's the first video on this channel in 2021, and the New Year's here, so Happy New Year everyone. This channel is small, I haven't really uploaded a ton on it, but I made it in 2020 with a goal being I was going to throw swim baits hard. I have another channel, I'll link it down below, it's Fishing for Real, and it's bass, it's salmon, it's steelhead, it's all kinds of fishing. But I really wanted to make this channel in 2020 and focus on throwing big baits for bass, because I've done it a little bit, I've caught some fish and I love doing it. And I really want to grow into it and start throwing these big baits a lot more. And in 2020, my plan was to start off in the early spring, early pre-spawn, throwing big baits and kind of go from there. But with the whole COVID stuff, you know how crazy 2020 was? It didn't happen. A lot of lakes got shut down. Fishing was, it's hard to get your hands on certain fishing lures and go certain places. So it was kind of hard to really stick with that game plan of throwing just big swim baits. So now 2021, hopefully this year we can stick to it more and we can really start building this channel up. So today in this video, I was out there, as you can see, throwing big swim baits. I was throwing an 8-inch Huddleston most of the day. And I don't know what this video was. It's probably just me rambling on for a long time, which a lot of these videos, I'm going to warn you, are going to be that. They're going to be me out there just throwing a swim bait for who knows how long, 10, 15 minutes, maybe not catching a fish, or maybe occasionally I'll catch a fish. But I might have some advice in there that may be helpful. I might have some tips, or it might just be silent, or maybe I'll have a little bit of background music and just me chucking a big bait. But I just want to create this channel just to kind of give some entertainment for people that are throwing big baits or looking to throw big baits. Because when I'm on YouTube, I love watching channels like, Oliver and I, Big Bass Dreams, or, and stuff like that. What's another channel? I don't know why I'm blanking, but there's a bunch of good channels out there where they just have videos of them throwing swim baits and catching fish, and not even catching fish, but just throwing these baits. I could just watch someone throw them all day. Something about it, I don't know. So today I was throwing an 8-inch Hud. I actually ended up losing it, which you guys probably saw, but I was on the phone with someone, so I didn't really talk a whole bunch. But I ended up losing it. I ended up throwing it up. I was basically, I started out the day fishing deep structure. I was on this little lake that they stock trout. So I was focusing on deep structure, close to where they stock trout, hoping that maybe there's some fish, piled up there for the winter eating some stock trout. And I didn't get any bites, so then I moved over to kind of paralleling the bank because the water's dirty, and there's two things that happens when you got cold, dirty water. A main thing is, in a lot of places around here, the fish actually go shallow. You hear on these big reservoirs, people talking about fish go deep. But in my lakes here, it's so shallow and dirty water, most lakes that I fish, or some of them, that the fish tuck up shallow. They get really high, the water gets really high, so they tuck up in the brush and the tules. So what I did then is, since I couldn't get anything deep, the water was dirty, I went up to the shallows and I started just throwing parallel along these tules, which is going to be really good in the spring. That's how I'm going to get bit coming this early spring in the pre-spawn. But I wanted to see if it would work right now. So there's only one way to find out. You got to go do it, right? You got to put the time in. That's how you find out what's going to work. You got to do it. So that's what I was doing. I was throwing up along these tule lines and just creeping that bait super, super slow. Just barely dragging it along the edge of those tules. And something failed in my setup here. I think it was somewhere in my connection knot. But I'm going to tell you right now, no matter how many times you check your line, no matter what you do, when you're throwing a big bait for a long amount of time, something's going to go wrong. Eventually, you're going to cast off a bait. And it could be a cheaper swim bait, it could be a Huddleston, it could be a depth 250, or it could be a Roman-made mother, some super expensive bait. But eventually, so that's why you just gotta be careful, gotta always be checking your line. Eventually, you're gonna miss a nick in your line or something, and you're gonna throw off a big bait. And there's nothing you can do about it except for hope that that bait is a floating bait and you can go get it. But other than that, you're kind of screwed. And there's definitely ways to prevent it, to kind of prolong that, from that happening. By checking your line a lot, but eventually you're going to get some nick or something and not know it, and you're going to end up throwing. And since it's such a big bait and you're just launching that, it's such a heavy bait, you get a nick in your line and eventually it's gonna pop on a cast because you're just lobbing such a big bait. It's not like a little crankbait or something that doesn't weigh anything. So while you're casting it, it's not putting any stress. These big baits, they put a lot of stress on your rod, put a lot of stress on your line. So it just, something happened in my connection knot and it failed, and that was kind of on me for not checking it. And so because of that, I lost a $30 Huddleston. That's kind of hard to get right now because this is the time of year everyone's wanting them and everyone's throwing them. But I'm going to go up the setup that the setup that I was throwing that on. This is a Daiwa DX swimbait rod, not an expensive swimbait rod at all. You know, something with swimbaits, you don't need super expensive gear, especially when you're first getting in. This is probably at the most 130 bucks for this rod. So it's actually cheaper than a lot of swimbaits that you actually are out there that I have or that you want to buy. This rod is actually cheaper than a lot of big, heavy, expensive swimbaits. But 130 at the most. I think I paid like 120 for it, maybe even less. And so this is it's rated, this is an extra heavy, rated 3 to 10 ounces. Works perfect. It's pretty heavy, pretty stiff, but it's perfect for throwing your like 4 to 5 ounce jig hook soft baits, or big glide baits, big like 5, 6, 8 ounce glide baits, anywhere in there, like a bigger size glide baits, or like the medium sized soft baits, you know, like an 8-inch Huddleston, that kind of stuff with a jig hook on them. It's really good for doing that. For the reel on here, this is actually a Piscifun. I think that's how you pronounce that brand. Piscifun Aliois. I don't know how they pronounce this. Aliois. I'll leave a link in the description to this stuff. But it's actually like a saltwater reel. But it's got the big power knob on it. This is a slow gear ratio. It's a 5-6 to 1, 5-8 to 1. Pretty slow gear ratio, so it's perfect for bottom bouncing those Huddlestons, dragging them through the on the bottom. And I have 80-pound braid, and then right now I have 80-pound braid, and then I have a leader, a couple feet. I think it's probably about 5-6 feet of 25-pound mono, and then my Huddleston. And that's how I rig it up. I've thrown straight fluorocarbon, I've thrown straight mono, I've tested it out, and no matter what, you're gonna have failures like I had. I've had failures no matter what, no matter, you know, eventually you're gonna get lazy, you're gonna not check your knots or check your, line for nicks, and you're gonna end up throwing a bait off. It just happens. But anyway, that's my setup. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and thanks for watching. I'm gonna try to get this channel growing in 2021 and see where we can go in the swimbait world. So some good things to come hopefully, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.